Welcome viewers, you're with me Dr. Surbhi Unial and I teach philosophy at Hansraj College, University of Delhi. Friends, in today's lecture we would be discussing art and morality, which is one of the important debates in aesthetics. And in this topic today we would be discussing that whether at all is there a link between art and morality, or whether we should relate art with morality or not, and what are the various philosophical issues regarding this relationship between art and morality. So, before moving further and to talk about art and morality, let us first briefly discuss what is aesthetics, because art and morality debate comes within the domain of aesthetics, and it is important for us to first understand what is aesthetics, or what is aesthetic, which is a branch of philosophy. So, aesthetics refers to the branch of philosophy that explores the nature of art, beauty and taste. It also deals with the creation and appreciation of beauty. It investigates the principles and qualities that define what is considered aesthetically pleasing or valuable in various forms of artistic expressions, including visual arts, literature, music, architecture and more. So, this branch of philosophy basically it tries to explore, it tries to discuss what is the nature of art, or what is the nature of beauty, or as you may call it as taste. And it along with that it also deals with what are the parameters that we need to keep in mind while the creation of art and beauty. It does not stop there. It also talks about how do we as observers need to appreciate beauty or art, or what are those parameters through which we try to appreciate art and beauty. Because the way we appreciate and how we need to appreciate, that also becomes important. So, it is not just from the point of view of an artist, but it also tries to tell us what is the responsibility of the observer of the art, because this is a two-way relationship, and therefore this branch of philosophy, which is aesthetics, it also deals with creation as well as appreciation of art and beauty. It then also tries to investigate what are the principles and what are the qualities that would define what is considered as aesthetically pleasing or aesthetically valuable in various art forms or in various artistic expressions, which could include visual arts, it could include literature, music, architecture and so on. So, it basically sets up those principles and qualities which tells us what needs to be considered as aesthetically pleasing or valuable. Then it also tries to answer the questions like, what is beauty? Is beauty objective? That means existing in the object, or is it subjective, which is that dependent on the observer's perception. And philosophers have debated whether beauty lies in geometric proportions, whether it lies in symmetry or in harmony, or is a matter of cultural conditioning and personal preferences. So, while investigating what is the nature of beauty, one important question that we often have to deal with in aesthetic is, what is beauty first? What is called beauty, or how do we define beauty? Or when we say something is beautiful, on what basis are we saying that something is beautiful? Is it from the objective point of view? And by objective point of view, we mean to say whether it exists in the object. So, if it exists in the object, then everybody would find something to be beautiful because it is objectively present in the object. Or is it subjective? And by subjective we mean that whether it is dependent on the observer's perception. Because when it is dependent on the observer's perception, it would vary from person to person, depending on person's individual preferences and their cultural conditionings. So, what is beautiful to me might not be beautiful to somebody else, because my cultural conditioning, my personal preferences might be different from that of the other. So, what I am finding to be beautiful, the other might not find that thing or object to be beautiful. So, this is again a very important debate in aesthetics, where there are two trends of philosophers from two traditions who are trying, one of them is trying to say or argue that beauty is objective, while there are others who say that beauty is subjective and it is dependent on the observer. And therefore, you might have heard a very famous saying that beauty lies in the eye of the beholder. And why do we say that? The precise meaning of that phrase is that beauty is subjective. So, the beauty does not really lie in the object, but beauty is actually dependent on my perception of that. So, it is dependent on the observer's perception, and hence it becomes subjective. Since it is subjective, it would then be relative. Fine, because it is not universal. Every individual person has different way of perceiving something. So, there could be different ways in which we define beauty, or what is beautiful to me might not be beautiful to someone else. Then somebody might say, though specifically those who might be believing that beauty is objective, they might say that beauty lies in the geometric proportions, it lies in symmetry, it lies in harmony. And if it lies in symmetry, if it lies in proportion, in some sense it would then be objective, because if it is complying to the geometric proportions, if it is symmetrical, then it should be beautiful to everyone. While those others who are in contradiction to this position, they might say that beauty lies or beauty is dependent on the cultural conditioning, or you can say the environment in which a person has been brought up. So, what is beautiful in one community or in one culture might not be beautiful in some other culture. So, it is a relative concept for some, and for them the beauty is something which is dependent on culture, and it is also dependent on personal preferences. So, it also discusses the definition of art. It also discusses the intention of the artist versus the interpretation by the audience, the importance of originality, and the role of art in society. It also involves classifying different art forms and discussing their specific characteristics and impacts. So, if we talk about aesthetics, if, as already mentioned, it discusses what is beauty, what are the parameters to define what is beautiful, and what is considered to be beauty based on two different trends, from the objective point of view and from the subjective point of view. Apart from that, in aesthetics, we also discuss what is the definition of art. We discuss what is the intention of the artist versus the interpretation by the audience. Because sometimes it's not necessary, though it looks quite necessary, that what is the intention of the artist is exactly perceived in the same manner by the audience. But that might not be in a very strict sense. As you take the case of some of the art forms which are open-ended, like if I talk about some poems or some movies and dramas which are open-ended, which have multiple meanings, though there could be an underlying background to it, or you can say a universal idea that is prevalent in that art form. But apart from that, since it has multiple interpretations, since it is open-ended, the way it is interpreted by the audience might be different from what the artist really intended to do. And that is considered as the beauty of art in one sense, because it is not really restricted or it is not really limited to one definition. So, here we discuss what is that, what intention and is there in the artist's mind versus the interpretation by the audience. It also discusses one very important point, which is that of originality. Since originality is one of the defining feature of art, and there has been a lot of debate in what is to be considered as a work of art in contrast to other creations that we do or the other products that we make. Why do we say, or why do we classify these two processes and say that and value something to be as a work of art? And one of the defining features there is the importance of originality, that the artist, when he is or she is producing a work of art, that is novel, because he or she is putting in an original perspective into it and bringing something which is quite original and novel, which is not present earlier. So, originality and creativity are one of the defining features of art. And how do we come to this creativity through this imagination or through originality? Is through imagination. So, it is the artist's imagination, that through the process of imagination that the artist produces something which is original. Every time the artist produces a work of art that is original and creative. So, that is one important point. Another important point that we deal with in aesthetics is the role of art in society. And this is very important here because it is going to link us to the debate of art and morality. So, if we talk about that, what role does an art play in the society? Is Is it only for the sake of pleasure? Whose pleasure? Maybe the pleasure of an artist who is producing that work of art, and also the pleasure of the observers who are gaining some pleasure when they are seeing or when they are experiencing a work of art. Is it just limited to that pleasure, or is it something beyond that? So, the role of art in society, whether it is limited only to pleasure or whether it can provide some other you can say meaning or message that it can send to the society, or the role it has in the society. And we will discuss it later on that this role of art in society then becomes quite essential when we are talking about the relationship between art and morality. Before going into that, let me also talk about what is an aesthetic object. So, if we are talking about aesthetic judgments, we are talking about aesthetic experiences, but what are we having those experiences, and that is of the aesthetic object. So, it is believed that aesthetic object has a capacity to evoke aesthetic responses and engage the senses, imagination and emotions of the observer or the participant. It possesses qualities or attributes that contribute to its aesthetic value and impact, such as beauty, harmony, creativity, originality, skillfulness or craftsmanship, and meaningful content. So, when we are talking about the aesthetic experience, the aesthetic object plays an important role. Why? Because it is believed that this aesthetic object that has a capacity to evoke aesthetic responses. And how does it do that? It evokes those responses by making us engage with it. And we engage with it through the senses, through our imagination, and also the emotions of the observer or the participant. So, it possesses those qualities, or you can say the attributes, that will contribute to its aesthetic value. And those qualities or those attributes are that of creativity, of originality, of harmony, and also the meaningful content that it has. So, aesthetic object is the focal point of aesthetic inquiry and appreciation. It encompasses a wide range of aesthetic expressions and possesses qualities that elicit aesthetic experiences. The interpretation and the evaluation of aesthetic object involves subjective and cultural factors, as well as shared understanding and criteria within the field of aesthetics. So, during an aesthetic experience, an individual may be captivated by the qualities of an object or artwork, such as its visual appeal, harmony, rhythm, or narrative. The experience can evoke a wide range of emotions. It could like that of joy, of inspiration, contemplation, or even a sense of transcendence. It can also stimulate intellectual engagement, inviting the viewers or participants to reflect on the meaning of symbolism or cultural context of the artwork. Now, another important aspect of aesthetic is to investigate how do we judge what is beautiful or artistic, And this area explores the criteria we use for making aesthetic judgments, which is the role of taste, whether there are universal standards for judging art and beauty. So, beauty as a central concept in aesthetic possesses a range of intriguing questions. Whether beauty is considered subjective or objective, there are multiple perspectives on how to approach its understanding, which we have just discussed, that there are theorists from both the positions, one who says that it is objective, the others who say it is subjective. While some argue that for complete subjectivity of beauty, others suggest that identifiable criteria or patterns contribute to our evaluation of beauty. So, it's in one sense they would say that complete subjectivity or complete observer's perspective is the way in which we define beauty, while the other suggests that it's not, it's not subjective as such, but it involves certain patterns which contribute to the evaluation of the beauty of that work of art. So, aesthetic here explores questions about beauty, the criteria of aesthetic judgment, and the nature of aesthetic experiences, and also the role of art in human life and culture. So, the role of art does not end with simply the aesthetic experience of joy, of awness, or of any kind of pleasure. In fact, the role of art is also considered in the sense of how it is impacting the human life and culture. So, the debate over the relationship between art and morality in aesthetics or in aesthetic judgment occupies a central space in philosophical aesthetics. And this discourse revolves around whether and how moral considerations should influence our evaluation of art. So, if we are trying to investigate the role of art in human life and in culture, it would definitely draw us towards the relationship that is prevalent in art and morality. And therefore, it occupies a very central space in philosophical aesthetics, where we try to see that whether and how moral considerations should influence our evaluation of art, that whether something is aesthetically appealing based on whether it is moral or whether it is immoral. So, coming now to the debate of art and morality. The philosophical debate on art and morality within aesthetics revolve around several core questions like, can and should art be judged based on moral considerations? Can art be morally problematic yet aesthetically valuable? So, if we are trying to investigate this relationship between art and morality, the primordial question that comes in is, can and should art be judged based on moral considerations? And by that we mean, can art be morally problematic yet aesthetically valuable? So, if a work of art is immoral or showing immoral content, can it still be aesthetically valuable or not? Whether it loses its aesthetic value because it's immoral or it's showing something which is immoral. So, we will discuss these questions in our next lecture, and we will see that what are the various debates and whether at all can we say that being morally problematic, does it ensure aesthetically valuable, or does it take us away from its aesthetic values. So, thank you for staying with us, and please continue to watch our lecture to look for the answers of such debates that are going on in aesthetics. Thank you.